that first day that everybody was there, you know, that's when she saw Natalie walking, and that's when Alice was there and Scott was there. We were all there. And we were all there just sitting there, you know, we were all quiet and everything. We were, you know, talking a little bit. And Mom, you know, had her eyes closed, and all of a sudden she opened up her eyes and she smiled. And, you know, we were all, you know, like, oh, you know, Mom's eyes are open, you know, let's talk to her. You know, we don't have too many more chances to talk to her like this. So that's when we, you know, try to take advantage of all that. And so she kind of smiled, and she looked at us and she said, I have a confession to make. And it was really funny because, I mean, at that time, when Mom would say something, it was very hard for her to get it out. Because she would say like the first part, and then she would stop, and then she would continue, and then stop. And then, you know, we were just hoping and praying that she wouldn't fall asleep before she got it out. And, you know, she was having a hard time breathing, so she couldn't talk very loud, and so we had to kind of strain to hear. And we were just hoping that we would be able to hear every word she said. And so it was very difficult to hear what she said. But what we think we heard was that she was uncomfortable with everyone being there. She didn't want everyone to be there. She had told Sharon and Steven before they left that very first day, before all this happened, that she didn't want everyone to be there waiting for her to die. That's when she said that she was suffering, and that, you know, they told her that A.L.S. patients never suffered, and she was just really having a hard time. That's when we upped the morphine, because we didn't want her to suffer. We didn't want her to be scared. She made it very clear several times that she didn't want us all to be there. But we made it very clear to her that she was never going to be alone, so get used to it. We were not going to leave her alone, and we're all here because we want to be here. We don't want you to be alone. We want you to know how much you're loved, how much you're cared about. And so that was just something I think she just needed to get used to, because we weren't going to go anywhere. So when I was leaving that day, I went up to her and I made her open up her eyes, and I said, Mom, I'm leaving now. I just want to let you know that I love you. And she said, I love you too. But she wasn't able to say it, so I didn't quite hear her voice. But I know she said it. She said, I love you. She mouthed it. And, you know, the words just didn't come out so I could hear her voice, but she said it. And so I guess I want to take those two conversations, you know, the confession and her saying I love you. That was the last time that I really heard her voice and her, you know, saw her acknowledge me. And the very next day is when she was in her full sedation. She would open up her eyes, but she couldn't talk, and she wouldn't even try to talk. One of those days, I can't remember what day it was, but it was when she still had her eyes open, and she wasn't talking, but she still had her eyes open. I needed to have my time with her. I needed to have my moment with her alone. And so I got there around 3 o'clock one of those days, and nobody else was there. Dad had gone to get something to eat. Luke took Natalie somewhere, so it was just me and Mom. And I was able to really tell Mom what I needed to tell her. That I love her, and that she's been the best mom a girl could ask for, and that I really don't want her to have any regrets. I don't want her to think that she has failed us in any way. I just really wanted her to know that we're all human, we all make mistakes, but those mistakes don't matter, because what matters is the love that you showed us and what you taught us, and that it was okay, and you've done what you need to do, and it's okay to let go. Of course, I didn't want to tell her all that stuff. I didn't want to say my goodbyes, but I had to say that. So I was really happy, and I was really happy that she had her eyes opened at that time. She had her eyes open, and she was listening to every word I said. She was looking straight at me. She couldn't react. She couldn't say anything, but I know she was hearing me. And I really felt good about that, because that was one of the last times that she had her eyes open. She would, open up her eyes for only a few seconds to acknowledge people, but then she would shut them again. Every time that they would give her medicine, she would open up her eyes. She couldn't swallow anymore, and so they would have to push the medicine down as far as they could, so that it could go down her throat. And she would swallow when she absolutely had to. So it's not like she couldn't swallow. She would if she had to, but she just wasn't swallowing. Aunt Alice and Stephen took the most night shifts, and Aunt Alice and I took one night shift, and then Luke and Aunt Alice took another night shift, and poor Aunt Alice, she took a lot of night shifts. It just got to the point where it was getting close to Christmas, and Sharon and Stephen and Tim had plans with the girls to go to a cabin for Christmas, and it was important to them to continue to do that, no matter what happens, no matter if Mom passes before this happens, or if, she's still in this, heavy sedation. They still needed to go and have their Christmas for the girls' sake. They didn't need to miss out on Christmas because this was happening. They needed to have an escape, to go out, have fun, and, just take a break from all this horrible stuff that's going on. But deep down inside, I was afraid. I was terrified, because I knew that Sharon and Stephen were going to be leaving, and I knew that Aunt Alice was going to be leaving, and then it was going to be Dad and I again. And I just knew I could not do that again. Dad and I took shifts for a whole week. He would take the night shift and I would take the morning shift or the day shift, and it was just so hard. And I was terrified of everyone leaving us and, it being just us again. I knew that things were different now, because back then Mom was talking, Mom was aware, she knew what was going on, and she would be able to react and tell us, hey, I need something. Now she couldn't. I don't know, I kind of had mixed feelings about that, because it didn't seem that she was uncomfortable, it didn't seem that she was in pain, but I just couldn't help wondering, because she was so medicated, that she just couldn't tell us that she was still in pain. I don't know, I had all those horrible thoughts going through my head, but what can you do? But the point is that at that time, things were different, and so it couldn't have been that much longer. We knew it wasn't going to be that much longer, because she hadn't eaten anything in 3 weeks. She hadn't drinking anything in close to a week. So we knew that it was getting close. So Sharon and Stephen left. Scott hadn't been back in a few days. He said his goodbyes, so he was just waiting for the phone call. Aunt Alice was the last one to leave. She left the day after Sharon and Stephen left. Aunt Alice left on Natalie's birthday, actually. And Sharon and Stephen actually came back on Natalie's birthday. And they were only going to stay one night and then go back home and have their Christmas. When it got to the point where Mom couldn't talk or open up her eyes that much, that is when I think I started to mourn her. Because that's when I just realized this was it. She's never going to be able to talk to us again. She's never going to be able to acknowledge us again. I'm never going to be able to really talk to her the way I want to again. And so I hold on to that last moment I had with her when I heard her acknowledge me and tell me that she loved me. I hold on to that because that was the last time. Yeah, walking into the door, I remember I hesitated every time I walked in that door, because I didn't want to walk in the door and see Mom just sitting there stuck inside her body, not being able to talk or react or open her eyes. And it was just so hard. We made it to Natalie's first birthday, and I told Mom that day that I talked to her, I told her, I'm like, Mom, Natalie's birthday's coming up soon, and we are going to come here and we're going to celebrate Natalie's birthday with you. And so I know she heard that, and I know she was probably looking forward to that, and that's probably why she made it as long as she did. And so she made it to Natalie's birthday that night. I was very happy about that. Sharon and Stephen were there we got a couple gifts, and we got a cake. And even though Mom couldn't watch us, Stephen was right beside her telling her everything that was happening. He would, say, Mom, Natalie's really getting in the cake. It's all over her face. It's all over her hair. She's really enjoying it. He's like, Mom, Natalie is opening up her presents now. She got a doll. And, he was just making her involved. And I'm so glad he did that, because Mom wouldn't know what was going on. She would just know what she was hearing. But, it was a good thing that Stephen did that for her. And, she heard us singing happy birthday to Natalie, and so she knew. She knew it was Natalie's birthday. Even though she couldn't open up her eyes and see, she knew. So Sharon and Stephen were only planning on staying that night. Like I said, they took the night shift that night. So they stayed all night. And then the very next day, Dad relieved them. And he was there from 7 to 8 to 6 or 7. And that's when I showed up. It was the day after Natalie's birthday. The day before Christmas Eve. December the 23rd. And so when I got there, I picked up some food for him to eat, and so he ate that, and then he left. And so I guess it was more like 7:30 when he actually left, and then it was just Mom and I. And I remember I Love Lucy was having a Christmas special, and they were playing some clips from past episodes. And Mom and I used to love watching I Love Lucy together. And so I would turn it up on some of our favorite scenes and explain to her, Mom, I Love Lucy's playing, and you remember this episode? They're playing this scene right now. And so I turned it up so that she could hear. She wasn't responding in any way whatsoever that she heard what I was saying. During commercials, I would mute it and I would talk to her, and I would tell her basically the same things again. I love you. You were a great mom. It's okay to let go. You've done your job. I was just encouraging her that it was okay. It was just me here. Everyone else had gone home. So if that's what you were waiting for, then, it's okay to go now. And the nurse came in, the med aide came in to give her medicine. 30 minutes later, she came in again. And that's when she noticed how pale Mom was. And I hadn't noticed that until she said Mom is a lot paler than she was the last time she was in there, only 30 minutes earlier. And that's when I realized, wow, Mom is a ghost right now. It scared me to look at her. She was still breathing because you could still see her chest moving up and down. Her hands, the very first thing I noticed when I walked in there, Dad was still there. I was holding her hands, and I noticed how cold they were. But the rest of her body was still warm. And so, Dad said that he had noticed that too, but he just wasn't sure if it was just him or if that's really what was going on. But I'm like, no, her hands are freezing. And so when the nurse came in and said that Sheila was very pale, I had a feeling that something was happening right now. So the nurse walked out and grabbed the director of nursing, the nurse that, helped Mom that very first day to calm her down. She came in, she checked her heart, her vitals and everything, and she said it's time. That's basically what she said, that it's going to be within the hour. And so I called Dad immediately, and I'm like, Dad, she's really pale in the face. They're telling me that she is not going to make it past the hour, so you need to come down here if you want to see her. So Luke had just gotten there, Dad just gotten there, and Dad and I were both holding her hand and talking to her and telling her it's okay, it's all right. Her hands were freezing, her whole body was getting colder, and Dad and I were just holding her hand. Dad was on the right side of her, and I was on the left side of her, and it's kind of sweet because Dad and I were the ones that have been with Mom for the past 2 years. It's been Dad and I. Dad's been there every day, and I've been there every other day, at least for the past several months since I've been off work. But even before that, I made a point to go there every few days. It was Dad and I as a team, and I thought it was kind of fitting that Dad and I were the ones that were with her at that time. Of course, Luke showed up, and so he was there with us too. But we just kept talking to Mom, and I was asking Mom if she remembered that whenever we would have our family devotions every night, before we would go to bed, we would sing all night, all day, angels are watching over you. All night, all day, angels are watching over you. As I lay me down to sleep, I pray the Lord for my soul to keep. Anyway, it was something like that. I'm not going to sing it, but those are kind of the words. The last few days, that song just been kind of going through my head, and I kept singing it in my head, and I kept telling myself, I need to ask Mom if she remembers. I need to sing this song to Mom. And I just never did. I don't know why. I wish I would have now, but I never did. I was able to remind her about that in that moment. I don't know if she heard me, but she was still with us because her chest was still going up and down, so I know she was still with us. I just don't know if she was hearing anything at that moment. I hope she was, because Dad and I were both there. We were both holding her hand. We were both talking to her. And I asked Dad if he thought she was hearing the angels yet. And he just said, I don't know. It's a very good possibility. I guess Luke had called Mike. Mike walked in. And when Mike walked in, he was terrified. You could just tell the look on his face. He knew Mom had already passed. And so he asked, when did you see her breathing last? And that's when Dad and I kind of looked at her, and we didn't know. We didn't know when she took her last breath. But that was it. She was already gone by the time Mike walked in. And we had the other nurses come in and check her heart, and just to make sure. And I just didn't want to believe it. Even though I wanted so badly for the nightmare to be over with, I didn't want to lose her. I didn't want this to be the final day that I had with her.